Hi, welcome back to Vola TV. It's Friday, the 19th of February. My name is Barry Wright. I'm Deputy Head Teacher at the Academy, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Matthew Boyle, our Head Teacher. How are you, Matthew?
I'm great, Barry. Thank you very much. It's lovely to be on Vola TV with you again.
Nice to see you. And I'm also joined today by Matt Hooper, one of our other Deputy Head Teachers. How are you, Matt?
I'm great, Barry. Thank you.
Lovely to see you. So today, Matthew, I think we're going to start off. You're going to tell us a little bit about some of the national developments that have occurred during the past week. I'm sure a lot of people will have seen these in the news, and newspapers, Facebook, Twitter, all that sort of thing. But if you can maybe just give us a wee bit of a flavour about the school's understanding of what's been announced during the last week.
That's great, thanks. I'm sure parents will have been tracking this stuff on the media anyway, but just to get our perspective on it, as a school, we are really proud of what our parents are doing, the amount of work that people are doing in terms of engagement online, the quality of of interaction with teachers, and just that general commitment to trying to get the best out of a tough situation has been wonderful. Thank you for that. The big deal is the government is telling us really clearly that if there are phases to a return to any normality in the near future, it's going to start with education. As a management team here in this school, we're desperate for young people to be able to get back into school. That's still the gold standard and the best way for them to learn. So we're heartened by the fact that from Monday, those parents who've got primary children or nursery age children will be able to get back as long as they're up to primary 3. I think it's P1, 2 and 3, and that'll be a big help, I think, to normalise some situations for families and homes, But for us in secondaries, we've got a first partial return next weekend that from Monday we can begin to bring in and will bring in young people who have practical work that they have to finish that they can't do at home, stuff that they've got to come into school for, for example, particular software packages on, in IT suites or particular things and technologies where you need workshop equipment. Or in art, for example, for portfolio work, things like that. And I know that Mr. Hooper's going to talk to us a wee bit about that, going all formal on you, Matt. Matt's going to talk to us about that in a wee moment. So the situation is that the government will announce a bit more next Tuesday, I believe, on how they see further loosening. The figures today, we're recording this on Thursday, have looked very good. I think we're down well under 5%. I might have gone under 4% positive test rate, which I believe, according to the OECD, is a really good sign that things are getting under control. So there is a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. It's it's getting bigger, it's getting brighter. I think we're saying be patient. Another few weeks to a month. We'll maybe have an acceleration of this return. But meanwhile, let's make the best of what we've got and take advantage. If you're a senior student, that's S4, 5 and 6 next week. You already know you've been invited in, and we'll talk just now about what that looks like.
Okay, so as of next week, a very limited opening, but we will have some of our senior students back in the building, and that's to be welcomed. Now, Matt, I think you want to tell us a wee bit more about some of the details around that, the organisation and the timetabling, and some of the nuts and bolts of what's going to happen next week.
Yeah, so as Matthew was saying earlier on there, the remote learning that we've been offering this time round has been very, very good, and the young people have been engaging really well with it. So the kind of main concern here was that we didn't want any partial reopening to support learning in some subjects to have a negative impact on the remote provision that we have in others. We're very, very fortunate that we've been able to timetable this in such a way that young people will come in the vast majority of the time during their timetable double periods. So there will be an expectation that on certain days, some young people will be working some of the time in school, some of the time at home working remotely. But as I say, that's to make sure that they can continue to access the learning across all of their subjects and that we're not prioritising time in one over another. Now, obviously, we had very strict guidelines that we had to follow. First of all, around the numbers of young people that were in, and really since this plan was outlined, yet to be confirmed a couple of weeks ago, the leadership team in the school have been in constant contact with the curriculum leaders in the different subjects, and we've been discussing with them exactly what practical learning needs to take place and exactly which pupils we have to bring in. So we have had to be very, very selective, and this has been done on a needs basis. So it's only in subjects where there is a significant practical element that cannot be delivered remotely. It's only in those subjects that we're bringing young people in. And again, there are variations mitigations between levels. In some subjects we've got, for example, higher students that don't have to come in because they're able to do the bulk of their work remotely, whereas the national fives and advanced hires maybe do have to come in. So it's all very, very much based on what learning's taken place so far within the department, and what the needs of that individual student are within that particular subject area. We've also had to be very mindful of the safety measures that we have to put in place. Now, as the students will know, parents will know, we've had a lot of safety measures in place over the last, over this term since we returned in August, and all of those mitigations will remain in place. Senior phase students will have to wear face coverings at any time when they're in the building, obviously, unless they have an exemption. The same will be true of staff. We will have a one-way system operating in the school. Young people will come in through the front of the building, they will exit at the back of the building, and again, that's to make sure that we're limiting contact. The main change in terms of the safety mitigations, two main changes. The first is the introduction of the lateral flow testing, which I believe Matthew's going to speak about in a wee bit more detail later, and the second thing is the 2-metre distancing. Now, the classrooms have all been measured, the class sizes have been adapted to make sure that we can create the conditions for the young people to maintain 2-metre distancing at all times when they're in the school, whether that's in the social areas or whether that's in classrooms. We will really be urging young people to adhere to this advice at all times when they're in the school building. So yesterday, the young people will have received an email. Only those young people who have been invited in will have received an email. That will be in your Evercloud inbox. That will tell you the subjects you've been invited in to study, and it will give you the days and the specific times. So if you haven't done so already, please check your emails. I would also be expecting that curriculum leaders and class teachers will be putting information on Google Classroom as well. And again, we've also sent an email yesterday to all parents outlining that there is a partial return, but again, guiding everyone to their child's Evercloud email address to find out the exact timings. And obviously, if anyone believes that they should be in for a particular subject that they've not been invited in for, my advice would be to contact the curriculum leader directly, and they'll be able to explain to you why it's not necessary for you to return at this particular time. So that's a kind of broad outline of what the plans are for Monday and moving forward from Monday.
That's great, Matt. It's really, really helpful. So students will have received an email to their Evercloud address. Parents have, has a letter going out to parents? Have parents get anything that they should expect to get?
So a letter was sent yesterday afternoon via email to all parents. There's nothing specific in that about specific young people, but it does outline the safety measures, old and new safety measures that we were expecting young people to adhere to. And it also outlines just a little bit more information about what the reopening is going to look like for those kids affected. What we would ask is that parents please take some time before the return on Monday just to speak to your children again, or your young adults again, 4th, 5th and 6th year, about the safety advice. And again, just assist us. We would appreciate your support in reiterating these very important messages. Obviously, as a school community, we take safety very, very seriously, and we want to make sure that any return to school is done so in as safe a way possible. So yeah, that's what we're looking for from parents.
Okay, so a message is going out, a specific message to students. That'll be in Evercloud. If parents want to look at that'd be a really good idea. Also, chat at the kitchen table or sitting having dinner, mute the telly for 5 minutes and have that chat about the safety measures, because they really are so important. And where a youngster, where one of our students hasn't received an invite to come in next week, then they shouldn't be in school. School isn't open generally as yet. It's only for students who are invited. But we would say to parents that if they're unsure about that, or if they think, well, this doesn't seem right, my child should be in school, they should just get in touch with us and let us know if they're unsure about any of that. Okay,
absolutely.
That's great. Thank you for that, Matt. Now, Matthew, you were going to give us a wee bit more information on the lateral flow tests that Matt referred to earlier.
Yes, I'd be delighted to. But first of all, can I just ask Matt, what about lunches for young people? I bet some parents are curious about that. Does that affect many people?
It doesn't affect many people, Matthew, but it will affect some. We do have a small number of students who will be timetabled for 2 lessons in a day. Where the lessons are back to back, so say it's a double period 1 and 2, they'll have their interval and it'll be a double period 3 and 4. The senior students will use the balcony area, and again we would encourage the social distancing, but they can use the balcony area for their break. The same thing at lunchtime. Now, young people are welcome, of course, to bring a packed lunch in, but again, we would ask that they maintain distancing when they're in the school. We would, however, as far as possible, encourage young people to leave the school, between lessons as far as possible. Now, that won't be possible at interval, maybe more possible at lunchtime. In a very, very few cases, we have young people who are coming in and they have a double period, maybe 1 and 2. They don't have a double period in school, period 3 and 4, and they're not back in until period 5 and 6. Basically, they've got between 10:40 and 1:20. Now, we understand that some young people maybe live quite a distance away and perhaps travelling back and forward twice in the one day may be difficult. If that is the case, of course, we will provide them with somewhere that they can work on their period 3 and 4 class. But where possible, if that's the case, we would encourage young people to come in for period 1 and 2, go home during your break time, do your remote learning for your period 3 and 4 class, enjoy your lunch, and come back in for 1:20 to start your afternoon session. What we are trying to do is make sure that we have as few people in the school as possible at any given time. So we always do encourage people to go home as much as they possibly can and come back in for a later session. But we do completely understand, I can't stress this enough, we completely understand that that's not possible or practical for everyone. And where it is not possible or practical, we will, of course, offer you facilities and resources to support your remote learning while you're in the building.
That was a really important question, Matthew. Thank you for your answer, Matt.
Thank you very much, Matt. I think that'll clarify for a lot of people. Right, just before I carry on then about the testing, Matt, I have to say it's very humble of you. Barry, you'll have noticed as well that we apparently have been lucky enough to timetable things in a particular way, but our audience should know that Matt Hooper is our timetabler, and it's an incredibly difficult job, and you do it really well, and we're very grateful for it, Matt. So it's nice that you share the credit with us there.
Thank you very much.
Part of the whole thing about safe reopening of schools, and I've said we're really anxious to get schools running again. We want young people here under this roof with their teachers, and I hope it will happen quickly. But part of it is the measure of home testing kits that's been announced by Nicola Sturgeon in Parliament. The bottom line is we have home testing kits for COVID now in the school. They actually arrived last week. We have them. You've been lettered. Now, it's worth just clarifying in case anyone hasn't seen the letter or something's gone wrong. If you're in any doubt at all, you contact our school office. Now, I want to be clear, we are not getting into the business of testing in schools. We are not qualified. We are not, we're not medical people. However, we are able to register that you've got a kit. We can give you a kit. It's got, I think, 3 tests within each kit. And the idea is that the government is encouraging you strongly if you're going to be back in the school building. And that's an important point. It's not just testing, willy-nilly, if you're working from home. You don't need it then. That's only if you get symptoms. You go and get a normal test, a PCR test, as they're called, the more reliable one from the normal test providers. But meanwhile, if you're attending Vale of Leven Academy, you now have the opportunity to self-test twice a week. And you can register whether you've had a positive result or a negative result to that, and it's done not through us. So there's a big privacy element to this. There's there's a website that you log into. I think you scan on your phone, and it lets you say, who you are and what your result was. Now all of that is under very strict privacy and will only be kept, under the same kind of privacy regime that your results would be if you get a COVID test from the NHS directly. So just to reassure you, that's there. Now, I also have to say, for those people who are not comfortable about that for whatever reason, this is not a compulsory test. So we close our doors to anyone, staff or other students, who doesn't do a test. It is only targeted at senior students anyway. We're talking about our S4s to 6s. And in practical terms this week, they've been available since this morning, for you to come and get. But we don't expect you to come and get them unless you've had a letter or an email saying that you're in next week to begin doing practical work For you, that would be great if you would take your test. That will let you know whether you're safe to come in. Because as we know, whether you feel ill or not, it's always possible you have what they call asymptomatic COVID. So you're carrying the virus, but you're not particularly infected yourself, so you're not aware of it. So this is just yet another way of breaking chains of transmission that we don't even know are there, and just helps the safety of the school. So again, would strongly encourage that. What I think we're quite clear on is, once you get going twice a week, it's every 3 or 4 days. We're not going to control which days. It's up to you. If you pick up your test on a Thursday, go home, do the test, and then maybe do it again on a Sunday night. It's up to you to come up with your own routine. I think that covers it all. Barry, is there
Yeah, I
anything
mean,
there?
well, the only thing I would add is I was in school yesterday, and I actually went through the process myself for one of the self-tests. So dead easy. You fill in a consent form, you hand that in, you get a box of tests. There was 7 in it, and you're allowed to do up to 2 a week, and it's fairly straightforward. There's a diagram, talks you through the whole thing. And I'm pleased to say I didn't have any surprises with it, but it was relatively straightforward. So it's nothing for anyone to be too concerned about. And there's one of these little codes, QR codes, I think they're called, and you scan your phone over that, and that lets you enter your results with the government. So it really is dead straightforward. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm not a particularly technical guy. So the fact that I found it so straightforward should hopefully be reassuring for everyone.
Barry, just if I can come in there on that, there is a video as well. I know the letter points it out, but there's a really good 7-minute video that the NHS have provided, which explains it to you in a nice, friendly way.
That's right. Yeah. So nothing to be worried about there. And as Matthew said, hopefully that will help to reassure everyone and break those chains of transmission. Now, I know everyone's working from home at the moment, and I know that presents its own challenges. So I thought we would round things off a little bit today by asking Matthew and Matt for their top tips on home learning. So if we could maybe start with you, Matthew.
Yeah, certainly. And listen, I'm going to ruin your flow. You're such a great link presenter, Barry, but I know you said you had 7 items in your test. Just for clarification, people shouldn't be confused if they pick up a test and it's got 3 in it, because the 7 one is for staff, and the one that's got the pack with 3 is for students. I don't know why they made that distinction. That's what came in the instructions. Sorry about that, but just in case anyone looks and thinks I've got the wrong thing, okay? Right, okay, so again, we're delighted at the work you're doing at home, but I've heard from a couple of parents, obviously been speaking to a few people on the phone, who are saying, oh, it's really hard, I don't know how to do this maths, it's not something I've done for years, or, the subjects are just unfamiliar to me and I wish I could help more. I just want to say 2 things. One, you're doing a great job. We're hearing wonderful things about the quality of home learning and about the support of parents. We're hearing that from students in the hub as well. It's really clear. We're hearing it nationally too. Parents are really stretching themselves and doing their best. But I want to just give one tip, because I think there's something really, really, really important that you need to understand. See, the idea of being a great teacher to your kids, it doesn't mean knowing the subject. It means helping your child to explain what they've been learning. And it's that old idea, you've probably felt it yourself when you try to explain something you're learning to a friend. You don't actually know what you really know until you try and explain it to someone else. So you start laying it out and say, what I learned was this, and it happened because of that. And then you realise all of a sudden, you think, oh, it's not clear why that happened. But anyway, there's something happened there. At that point, that's something you need to go back and look at and understand and think about a bit more. So as a parent, you're wanting to learn how to do let's say quadratic equations in maths, just as a random example. It doesn't matter that you don't understand them. It makes no difference at all. Your job is to make a nice cup of tea, chocolate biscuit, preferably not, because that sugar's not good for you, and sit down and say, right, you've been working really well this period. Show me, and take the 5 minutes, show me what you did and explain it to me. That's really interesting. Why is that cut through that line there? And your kid will do it. They will tell you. And when they start to waffle or fumble, or they clearly don't really get it, you don't need to be a teacher to say, you don't get that, do you? You're just at it. And they'll go, fair enough. Another cup of tea, get yourself back to your room. Come on, you can get this. So you are much better teachers than you think you are, whether you know the subject or not. It's the discipline of saying, I'm interested, show me it. I don't need to learn it, but I'm dead interested in how it is to you. So there you go, just one takeaway tip. And thanks again for the great support you've given to our community's young people.
That's great. Thank you, Matthew. And Matt, is there anything you would add? What's your top tip for home learning?
Honestly, my top tip's more for the young people. You're doing a great job. As Matthew says to parents, young people are doing a great job as well. Our students are working incredibly hard. They're engaging really, really well. And I know when you go into that Google Classroom and you've got several different subjects and you've got all these different tasks that have been posted, it can look overwhelming. My advice to you is do your best. Make sure that you're giving everything you've got to each of your subjects. Concentrate on what it is that you're doing and produce work that is of a standard that actually demonstrates how you're learning, and make sure you're getting that handed in. Remember, if you put in a piece of work that you've hardly put any effort into, the feedback that you're going to get is not going to be valuable. It's not going to help you progress your learning. Make sure the things you're handing in are of as good a quality as you can possibly make it, and that will make the feedback that you get an awful lot more valuable, and that is how we continue to progress your learning even during this period of remote working. So that would be my tip for our students, Barry.
That's great advice. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Now, one other thing I would want to add, just at the end of the programme here, is as you continue to work at home, and I know we say this every week, but please make sure that you continue to check in. We monitor that every day. Now, if you don't check in, we'll call home. We'll call to check what's going on. We'll be worried that you're not checking in, and we'll be phoning to check in your welfare. Now, that's a pain for you, of course, but it's also a pain for us because it's using up resources within the school having to make those calls. So please make sure that if you're working from home and everything's well, please make sure that you're checking in every day. And great advice there. Keep at it, and make sure that you're doing your best. So that's all for today on Vola TV. Thank you very much, Matt, Matthew. Lovely to have you on the programme.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you again next week. Thank you.
Bye.